Live.
I love how Keith has beer and coffee, and that they balance each other out.
Sure. Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
Okay, so here we go. We're live. This is happening. I guess I should have cued us. We'll do this. I'll bring it. Okay. This is a special show. We're here today to celebrate the very first Cosmos. You guys are like on edge. You should see this. You're like, what's he gonna say? Here we are. It's Being Humanist. I'm Mike.
And I'm Keith.
And we brought along with us our favorite new little buddy,
Justin.
And we're here to celebrate the very first new release of the show, Cosmos. And we're celebrating. Each of us have our own beverage. And we're going to see if we can make the sounds when we open it. Oh, yeah.
The oh yeah was very appropriate. That was good.
Not bad, not bad.
I was going to say, I hope it's good. Actually, that's interesting. I have a gingerbread spiced ale. It's kind of tasty.
It's a very layered beverage that I have. I have the Belgian style pale. It's very nice.
So, well, I mean, here we go, man.
Yeah.
Okay, first, before we get too far, I want to make sure, we got to make sure we at least, welcome to Being Humanist. You can always contact us at beinghumanist.podcast@gmail.com. Find us on facebook.com/beinghumanist.podcast. We're on Twitter, although I'm still, I think, the only one who really uses it.
You are correct, sir.
Being Humanist PC. And we're on youtube.com/Being Humanist Podcast. No dot between the two words. Guys.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a very postmodern episode this time around. A lot of dead silence and sort of ennui.
Uh-huh.
I love how you called me your little buddy.
Yeah.
I'm
Bigger than both of
I
us.
am
Yeah.
physically a giant.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking to myself,
Yes.
I'm just going to start calling you little buddy
That's
just
fine.
because.
He definitely dwarfs me. So I'm not a very tall man.
And you yourself actually used to dwarf me a little bit. While you weren't taller, you were
Was much larger.
you were a stocky man. So anyway,
Cosmos.
Now I'm fit as a fiddle.
There you go.
we are
No,
what?
you do
10
look-
hours?
You do look good, man. Like
Thank you.
You look like you've actually you. I love how you've talked about on the podcast about how like you're like I'm not a Christian anymore. I'm not a fat fuck anymore. Like, I love that. And you look great. You look great, man.
Thank you. I actually just ran 3.1 miles
Fantastic.
a couple of
Just
hours
now.
ago.
You're an inspiration because I don't believe in God anymore, but I'm still a fat fuck. So
Yeah.
it's like I abuse my body with food.
I was gonna say I've been in this boat for a long time and I just keep getting bigger. But you are an inspiration.
Hey, thanks, guys.
But speaking of things constantly expanding, let's talk about the cosmos.
Yes, the
Took Justin to
cosmos.
get us on track.
It is constantly expanding.
We are what?
At an accelerated rate.
We are what? 9.5 or 10.5 hours past the original 9 p.m. showtime yesterday.
Yeah.
So, guys, it happened.
Yeah.
Cosmos played, and the world is still here. I don't know that anybody said that it was going to blow up or anything, but
I don't think
the fact of the matter is that it played, and it was incredible. I loved it. I loved pretty much everything about it.
It was a fantastic opening to the series.
I was impressed with how they handled themselves and how they put things out there and said, we don't care. We're not afraid of what people are going to think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Justin, what did you think?
I was very touched by it. It moved me, especially the stuff that was the dedication to Carl Sagan. Was at the beginning how it begins with Carl Sagan and it ends with him. I thought, as a beautiful tribute to him, was very, very nice. And then visually, I think it was pretty stunning. I thought that the reimagined Ship of Imagination was really cool. To take it away sort of from being the more static version that you have in the Carl Sagan version to the more dynamic and sort of moving and sweeping version that you get here. Mm-hmm. I was very impressed with how they integrated a lot of the classic themes of the original Cosmos, from the cosmic calendar to the We Are Made of Star stuff. Billions and billions, all that classic great Carl Sagan stuff that sort of comes back in. And then I think that, and I watched a video about it too, but the main reason in a lot of ways that this got done is because of its host, Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, who I think is a huge reason for why Cosmos came back. And I think he's a great host.
I think between that and him being friends with Seth MacFarlane, who was the executive producer, who knew the person to talk to make this happen as well.
Right.
I too I thought that was a fantastic way to open the show with the Carl Sagan clip. I thought even more fantastic was the fact that they started with a 30-second Barack Obama commentary for the show.
That was cool.
In which I was thinking, that is so wonderful that you were doing the opening for the show, President Obama. Would you please give NASA more money?
Exactly.
I agree with that. I was very much, and I was moved by the fact that it's like, I love that you're saying this, but let's pressure Congress to bring manufacturing back to America. That was kind of my other thing too, and bringing science and technology back into the forefront.
Right.
How do you think about the beginning, Keith?
Well, I loved the beginning. I liked that the president did a little intro. No doubt that will turn some people away from viewing, but that's their loss.
I want to watch this.
But aside from, starting out with a little tribute to Carl Sagan, I loved the actual beginning of getting into the substance. Like, we start with Earth. We move out to our solar system planet by planet.
Oh, yeah.
We move out to the arm of one spiral arm on the Milky Way galaxy, and he's just adding perspective layer by layer by layer by layer.
Look at how small you are.
And that right there is something that everyone needs to contemplate, because everyone considers themselves so important, and we are important. And I think Neil definitely addressed that eloquently. But people do need to consider our place in the universe, consider how small we are.
I think sometimes it can get lost, people... when you think about
it's
that,
hard.
When you get that scale issue going, you think about how insignificant we are in the whole grand scheme of things. I think it's important to realize, while we're saying that, that's not to say that we're not special, because obviously something special happened and life was created.
Right.
But at the same time, you have to understand, in the grand scheme of things, we are really insignificant. Talk about death awaits us at any given moment.
Right.
And it waits for us, period. In 5 billion years, the sun will suck in the inner planets, and then either will shrink into a white dwarf and then sort of peter out into a black hole, or it will explode and become a supernova. So, and I think that was handled well. And I just love the idea of, I didn't know the thing about the Virgo supercluster. I didn't know that part. So it was really cool to learn about how it's Earth, solar system, Milky Way galaxy. You go out into what's called the local group, and then the Virgo supercluster, which is like the coolest term ever. And then
the known universe,
unknown universe.
Yep.
We got to hand it to NASA for coming up with really cool names for this stuff.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
So I think we've basically decided to dedicate almost this entire show toward the cosmos. Do we want to go on? I guess, do we? I don't know. Where are we going?
Well, I think a great place to start. We've given our initial thoughts on the first episode. Why don't we get some thoughts from a national outlet, which you have in front of you here?
This sounds perfect. Last night, late after the show was over, I was going to bed. It's midnight. I'm laying in bed with my wife, and all of a sudden, well, what I did was I was on Facebook, and if you noticed on the screen during the show, they had a hashtag Cosmos. So I thought, people are probably hashtagging the hell out of this thing. I'm going to go ahead and click on hashtag Cosmos on Facebook, because they do that now. And all of a sudden I see just a massive list of people who have been talking about Cosmos. And this article popped up from Time, so I thought I'd give it a read really quick, and I shared it with you both late last night. And the one paragraph I'm going to read here was the one that really stuck out to me, and I thought it said a lot about the lights just went out in the studio. It's a good thing I still have power. Anyway, I thought that it said a lot about what the show was and what it's intending to do. So I'm just going to read this really quick. And he goes on, he says he's got a first case for the remake, because they talk about this being a remake, and it's really not a remake, it's more of a continuation, right?
Yeah.
So in his second case for the remake, as he calls it, he says, a second case for the remake, which the series itself lays between the lines of the producers, including Sagan's widow, have stated flat out, is the recent political cultural attacks on science, be it climate change or the teaching of evolution in schools. The centerpiece of the first episode is a lengthy animated story about the persecution of the 16th century monk and astronomer Giordano Bruno. The message is plain. There is a right side and a wrong side of intellectual history, and Cosmos is not afraid to say that science is on the right one.
Yeah. And I would even broaden it out. I think that the article's right on that, but I think I would broaden it out to just free inquiry and the use of reason. I think is sort of the even bigger meta concept that sort of goes to the episode. One thing I like that Neil did at the beginning was he talked about how science works, what kind of framework do scientists use, and he talks about how as new evidence comes in, you sort of keep good ideas, you discard bad ideas, and you question everything, and that's how science works. I appreciate that he shared that, because that's a crucial element there. That's really is reading between the lines, and then the Bruno part is very, very nice. But overall, I felt like scientific inquiry, free expression of ideas. That was really, I think, even the bigger side of it too.
What do you think, Keith? What do you think about that statement?
I obviously agree with pretty much everything it says. I mean, this is what I spout on a daily basis, basically. But yeah, I think the Bruno thing, like Justin, I liked the Bruno thing. I've tried to, since some people seem to have a negative reaction to it, I've tried to kind of see it from their perspective. Having a hard time doing it, because like I said when we were having a conversation before the show, I mean, Bruno was a theist,
right?
And his only point that he was trying to make to these people is you're boxing yourselves in. You're relying on this man-made definition of God when obviously there's so much more out there. Like you're like, your God is too small. That was what he said. Well, it dramatized, obviously. I don't know if he actually said it before he died. Like it was.
Yeah.
But I do think that it was something that was needed, though, because people that are religious must face the fact that religion has been historically very, very apprehensive towards science, and they have only accepted scientific ideas through acquiescence, and it's something that needs to be pointed out. They need to deal with. They need to realize it is something that they've done,
right?
But they don't want to admit it. Just like this, we were discussing also earlier, this little mini debate I had with a guy online, where he didn't want to admit, like somebody brought up Galileo, and he still didn't want to. He wanted to paint the church as if it was a great boon to science.
Yeah.
And it's not remarkable that a lot of scientists from that period were actually believers and religious.
Because that's what you had, and
right.
If you didn't, you died.
And that was where all the institutions of higher learning and education and literacy were a part of the church. That's mm-hmm. why if you look at a lot of the people who were major scientific thinkers, that all of them are tied to the church, because that's where they were educated.
Right, and your merits as a scientist have nothing to do with your religion. It's not a credit to your religion. You know how well you are, how well you do as a scientist is not a credit to the religion, because you can't open up a religious text and discover something other than, I mean, it's always there. It's always the same. Well, translations, I mean, let's not get too picky here.
Yeah. No, but your point is made.
We're not actually making discoveries about the world through reading this religious text, and that has to be admitted. I mean, we're doing this on our own. This is human inquiry.
And I think Justin brought up a good point, which is something that Neil brought up in an interview that I saw just the day before, which is it's not surprising to realize that these people, Bruno, then you can go toward art with Michelangelo and all these other people. I mean, these things were funded and researched because the church had the power.
Right.
And it was those people, for instance, the artists like Michelangelo. I think Tyson actually made a point of saying it would have been interesting to see who, if somebody else had the power, what other piece of architecture might have what's, the talent of Michelangelo that was used on the Sistine Chapel.
And the one thing that he brought up too, and he says that, Bruno's predictions about the universe were a very lucky guess, based on his sort of revealed dreams that sort of came to him, and sort of had this sort of epiphany, if you will. So he could have completely been wrong, but that's beside the point. The point is that you have somebody who is making something up for debate and for discussion, and instead of getting a sympathetic or an interested crowd, he's getting one that is violent.
Heresy!
That is violent, that is antithetical to free thought. So I think it's even bigger than science. It's about people having the right to have free inquiry of ideas. And the church certainly had a huge point to make during that period to crush anything like that, because it questioned the very fabric of their institution.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I thought it was actually very interesting that whole part of the show last night with Bruno. I think was it you? Which one? I don't know which one said it, but it was your favorite part.
It was my favorite part. Yeah.
See, it was right up there for me too, and I think we actually had a conversation with Greg too about
We did,
it.
yeah.
And what I thought was interesting was their use of imagery, which that people like Ken Ham, who I believe said it was a well-orchestrated piece of propaganda.
Yeah.
I thought they did a really good job of showing and making sure that people knew that, you've got Bruno down in this hole trying to read this book and educate himself, and then all of a sudden, knock, knock, this evil-looking pope comes up with his staff, and he's like, "You're going away."
Uh-huh.
And it was interesting, the imagery that they used. And as I'm watching it, all I can think of is, oh man, there are going to be some pissed off people.
Right. Well, I think we both said that right at that point together.
Yes.
I do think it's necessary, though, for things like that to be presented to the world. I mean...
Yeah, there was the other thing, too, that we talked about with Greg, where the imagery of him right before he died, where he reaches his arms and then he, floats up into space.
Uh-huh.
There was, I think, was it Greg who, and forgive me, Greg, when you listen to this, was it Greg who mentioned that it seemed very heaven-like? Because he's just about to die.
Oh, yeah.
The reason that I don't look at it that way, I mean, I can understand it, but I don't look at it that way because what they show is him getting his one last chance to dream about what he thinks is out there before he's burned at the stake.
It's a bit of a stretch. I mean, it reminded me very much, and I don't know if you fellas have seen Man of Steel, the new Superman movie.
Yeah.
But there's that scene where he rips the side of that spaceship off, and then he's talking to his, this computer animated version of his dad, and then he floats out of the plane, and as he floats out of the plane he goes like this, and he's like a cross, and then he flies down and saves Lois Lane, and people kept saying, well, that's very Christ-like, and I'm like, well, no, it's just very natural to go like that, like I'm floating in space and it's totally cool. That's just what people do. I think it's sort of natural to want to do something like that, but the imagery is not lost on some people.
Did anyone else notice, though, when one of the priests or whoever it was, it stuck his staff in the face of Bruno, and Bruno turns away as if he's...
No, that was so badass. I was so cool that he's rejecting, he's rejecting their version of the world. He's rejecting their version of faith. That was an interesting thing. And we talked about this before the podcast, I found that the documentary was not very mean to religion. I thought it was very critical of religion, but I thought it was generally very sympathetic.
Yeah.
I don't think it was that incredibly mean.
I don't disagree at all.
I think it was definitely sympathetic to at least a theistic worldview, like the belief in the existence of a creator of sorts.
And it was also certainly very sympathetic to the idea of cultural mythology, and how mythology and cultural tradition shape who we are as a people, which is something that's very much a part of the original Sagan series too.
the whole "we are made of star" stuff. A friend of mine actually, who is a science geek like myself, posted a Facebook status of we're all made of star stuff after watching it, and
Right.
and she actually got a little bit of pushback just for saying that.
That is amazing.
Yeah, I thought that was funny, but right away it was like 2 or 3 comments in, someone's like, "No, I'm sorry, I disagree." I'm like, "Oh, you disagree that we are made of the same elements that were forged in stars? You really disagree with that?
all of the elements that are just among us.
Where do you think these elements came from?"
Yeah, my real question for him would be: Have you had your findings published in Nature or
Right,
Discovery?
right.
Have you done peer-reviewed studies? Have you made analysis of the what data retrieval what they find about collapsed stars? Have you done the homework?
Uh-huh.
That's the biggest problem too. Is it's like. And this is the point that Neil made in that article that you and I both read, which is science doesn't give a shit what you think. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't care. Reality doesn't give a shit about you.
My response to that comment was going to just be the quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson, which is, the good thing about science is it's true whether you believe it or not.
You can disagree till the cows come home, but you're fucking wrong.
Right. Well, and I don't think people understand how far along we've come to be able to determine what elements are made in stars, and like we have the whole the spectrometers and the spectrograph and things like that we know for sure what elements are being born in these stars. We know this, and we know just from testing parts of the human body what elements make up the human body.
Right.
We know where these elements were formed. There's just no way of getting around it. We are made of star stuff. Okay. Who cares how it got here? I think that's the thing.
It's the thing.
And one of the things that Bill Nye made a really good point about saying, and he said this in the Ken Ham debate, and he also said that in his sort of like mini debate with Marsha Blackburn on Meet the Press, which was really good, is that he goes, some people believe that some forms of doubt within the scientific community means that we should doubt the entire thing altogether. Because that's how religion works. If one piece of it doesn't fit just quite right, you have to throw the whole thing out. And that's a really bad way of viewing the world. Science grows upon doubt. It grows upon people testing new ideas and testing the accuracy and the validity of them. And you keep good ideas, you discard bad ideas. But this idea that there's sort of contentions about certain issues, whether it be like the multiverse or certain things that are very contentious in science, where people are still debating and trying to figure it out, somehow means that all of science is wrong.
Right.
And it's not. And I think that that's the biggest problem. It's like this weird sort of willful ignorance that just doesn't make any sense.
Right. And to that point, even people like us who fancy ourselves free thinkers, rational-minded people, we still need to make sure that we even question the most basic of things.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
In a philosophical sense, we must even gravity. Obviously gravity is a thing, but
It's
you
kind of a
know what
thing.
I'm getting at here. It's
or abiogenesis, or the whole "are we all brains in a vat?" Hard solipsism problem. There are all kinds of things that we can sort of contemplate about, and we should question those things.
Right.
And that's important. But
Well, I think that's kind of like part of the motto of our show is keep thinking and question everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Nothing is ever solid. Anything can be proven wrong.
all knowledge is tentative.
yes.
All knowledge is tentative. There's no such thing as absolute
Absolute
truth.
truth,
It does
yeah.
not exist.
Other than gravity.
Well,
At least to Earth.
gravity does seem to exist, but we definitely don't fully understand everything about gravity yet.
And we have to be open to the possibility that there may be something that comes along the line that challenges our notions of gravity. Like,
Right.
we have to keep that in the back of our mind open. It doesn't have to be open very big. Personally, yeah, gravity's obviously real.
Uh-huh.
I always make a funny joke because we were talking about Obama. I always talk about the funny joke about how Republicans hate Obama so much that if Obama came out and said, if he said something along the lines, "My fellow Americans, gravity is real and it governs the laws of the universe." And then you would have all the House Republicans come out and go, "Fuck him, we can all fly. Jesus will let us fly." Like, they would counter him with even the most basic things.
You're going to have a lot of evangelical, right-wing Christian congressmen
Right.
trying to fly.
And my real response is, go for it. Why don't you go jump off that cliff?
Oh, man.
One big hope of mine is that those that need to watch this
Absolutely.
series watch it, and they maintain the attention span, because this episode was obviously a preview, and I hope that they get that. Because you and I were, when we were watching it, like when he kind of went through the formation of the Earth, and then he's like, oceans began to emerge, and I was like, oh, that was kind of a quick little.
Yeah, you felt like he skipped over a bunch of stuff.
He did, but purposely.
Right.
I just hope they stick around to find out how oceans are formed, because all of these ideas of how planet formation happens and how our oceans were formed are very, very plausible and make a lot of sense. And I think if people can see this step by step, they won't be so quick to scoff, basically.
I thought it was a pretty fantastic way to open. I mean, it was the first episode. So in a sense, he had to give, just like any paper, this is the stuff we're going to cover.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm just saying I hope they get that. Maybe I'm being a little bit of a dick here, but
No, and I think some people will. One of my favorite things that I saw after the premiere was on Facebook, and obviously this is an anecdote, so take it or leave it, but there was a young boy, and it was a picture that his mom had taken. It's a young kid watching Cosmos, and he's like 8 or 9 or some shit like that, and his mom goes, he sat there the whole time and didn't say a word.
that's cool.
And it's like, that's it. That's the key.
We definitely want that.
This is not just for people like us. I mean, for people like us, this is the closest it gets to church. So like, this is very important to us in our story of who we are and why we're here. So we're already hooked in. But the key thing is that this does what the original Cosmos did before it, which is that it inspires children.
Right.
To be inquisitive, to be curious, to be exploratory, and all of that. Like that is the goal.
That's probably the most important thing, I would say.
that was definitely the basis of my Facebook post from last night. It was just the idea of how many hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of little kids are now striking up conversations with their friends, their families.
I definitely hope so.
I mean, that there had to be conversations that went off until people were falling asleep because they just couldn't stay awake any longer.
Right.
I mean, that's what I remember when I would see stuff like that as a child. It would just be like, well, what about this? Well, what about that? You know? And, of course, my dad is right there trying to answer these questions for me as best he can. But, yeah, I mean, I think that's the huge, and that's the big reason for this show, and that's what I'm really looking forward to seeing happen.
I think it's the most important part. But what I was speaking to earlier was like those that are science. I want people that are of the science denial ilk to watch also, because I want them to understand these arguments, because they don't understand. I'm not saying none of them do, but I'm just saying a lot of the conversations that I see online and that I see in debates that I've watched and in my own conversations, they really just do not understand the aspects of science. I mean,
we do a piss poor job of that. One of the things that Seth MacFarlane talked about in his article, and I think Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about all the time, is that in the 1950s and 60s and 70s, during the golden age of space exploration, there was a huge push in this country about the home of tomorrow, the car of tomorrow, the city of tomorrow, and all of that, and how science and technology were the pillars upon which all of us and our future prosperity depended upon. And we now live in a culture where everything's so cheap. Everything is so cheap. I mean, how you can have a computer. I have the world in my pocket with an iPhone, and people just have these things.
Holy shit, dude! That thing you got in your hand right there is more powerful than the computers that they used to send the first man up into space.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The graphing calculators we all use have higher computing power than Apollo 11 did. It's just they take it for granted. I think people take it for granted, and it's like they can't anymore. And I think that Cosmos is a beautiful sort of testament to no. This is what put America on top. This is what makes the world a better place.
Agreed.
That was serious shit.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. We have ourselves a few different articles up here. Just was it you or this Seth MacFarlane? Did you want to talk about something?
That was you that
gave
me that article.
Damn it.
Basically, this article is an interview, and it kind of speaks to what Seth MacFarlane hopes to accomplish with
Oh, yes. As I skim over it, I remember that, yes, I did read this.
Yeah. And, you know, one of the things that he wants to do is he wants to turn this little trend of basically flat earthers being given the same kind of stage as real scientists. He wants to turn that in the eyes of the public to, like, basically they don't deserve it. I'm sorry to be so blunt, but they do not deserve the same amount of time to speak on to these issues. I mean, they.
Oh yeah.
It's a very primitive.
And there used to be a time in this country where, you know, journalism was, I think, fairly balanced, but the other problem too was that, you know, they were also very careful to give people credibility based upon what they brought to the table.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people, you know, Edward R. Murrow, the I believe the 60th anniversary of Murrow's speech on television talking about the evils of McCarthyism. You couldn't get away with that today without people calling for your job and things like that. I mean, and so it's interesting how journalism in these days, people talk about being fair and balanced. I think there's some things that you should not be balanced about because they're retarded. They're absolutely wrong. They will retard our culture. And they didn't used to get credence in our culture, and that it really bums my shit.
We
Does.
have one side that's attempting to fix the world's problems from the angle of speculation and faith-based knowledge, and we have another that's working their asses off and gathering evidence and finding out what we really need to do to improve things in the world. And yeah, they don't deserve equal time. They don't deserve equal time or an equal platform. I'm sorry, it's just the truth.
No.
As we keep going on here,
they have their own networks, they have their own museums, they have their own publications, they have their own book companies. Let them do their shit on their own time. Let us outside of the bubble not have to deal with their shit. Because they have networks and media for everything. Let them do it in their bubble, and we'll stick in the reality bubble.
And then they can keep benefiting from our advances.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think anybody who is a creationist should give up their cell phones. They should give up their cars. They should live as Christ lived. Like they should live as the Bible says them to live.
No more refrigeration.
we
for that
made
food.
that joke, I think, at the end of the last show where we were talking about all those who oppose gay marriage or equal marriage rights. They should be forced. It was a game show. It was a Twitter
to
thing.
live 100% biblically, like by biblical law,
like for 6 months or something.
Yeah.
I think as we were kind of talking about the cool things about the show, this Los Angeles Times article. God dang it, what's his name? Seth MacFarlane. He's answering one of these questions. This reporter asked him, "What do you think Neil brings to the project that's unique?" And what I love here is that one of the things I love about the fact that Neil is doing this is he can actually back up what he's saying. He's not just a celebrity. If someone approaches Neil after this with a question, he can answer with authority, which is a plus for me. I think that in its own right, I mean, I think that's why, in a sense, he's probably just the perfect choice along with Carl Sagan.
Right.
They both have this amazing ability to teach science and do it so that people understand.
Right. Absolutely. And I had another thing here that he...
Same article?
Yeah, same article. The question was, what do you think needs correcting? How have we gone off track? And Seth MacFarlane's response is, you look back at the 60s and 70s and there was great pride in scientific achievement in this country, particularly in the area of space travel. Our advancements as human beings were important to us and something that we wanted to see continue and evolve. In 1969, we all thought that we would have a permanent manned presence on the moon by the year 2000. And then in 2012, Newt Gingrich suggested that we should have a moon base, and everyone thought he was crazy. And I was thinking, I'm a liberal Democrat, but I'm 100% with this guy. He's exactly right. They thought this would happen 10 years ago, and here he is making this suggestion, and suddenly he's a crackpot. I think that's one reason to get back on track.
I have to admit, when I read that, I myself was also laughing. Like, damn it, I don't want to agree with this guy, but you have to.
I do, yeah.
Oh, yeah. When people, and in a broader way, I always love when people are like, what do we gain from this? What do we gain from this? And it's like, we gain so much. Not to talk about just the spin-offs alone, but we gain so much from exploring and from understanding our place in the universe. You know, we should be on Mars. We should be going out. We should be doing all kinds of things. You know, if they had a thing that said, "Hey, this is a one-way trip to Mars. Now we're gonna put a base on Mars. You can't come back. Do you want to go?" Hell yeah, I want to go. Absolutely. I'd leave this place in a second. Live on fucking Mars. Absolutely. Because here's my thing, okay? You know that the first Mars colony would have a wiki page, right? And obviously my name would have a wiki page.
Yeah.
So born January 22nd, 1990, Beach Grove, Indiana. Died, November 5th, 62 on fucking Mars.
That is pretty awesome.
Like that is exactly what I want. So yes, I'm with Newt Gingrich 100%.
On this subject.
On this particular subject, yeah.
I died on fucking Mars.
Yeah, right.
Damn right. He lived at the base of Mount Olympus on Mars.
Go ahead,
Just wanted to continue with Seth here. Just one quick little thing here. This is from the same question. He continued with, the space program has decayed to a point. Yeah.
Okay.
The space program has decayed to a point that is incredibly depressing. We as a species are explorers. Why are we stopping? We've seen the rise of junk science, of charlatans who are telling us not to vaccinate our children. I just read about this measles outbreak in Massachusetts. For the love of God, don't listen to Jenny McCarthy. She's not a doctor.
I just want to put out there for the record that when I was like 16 years old, I knew that one day I was going to marry Jenny McCarthy.
How does that make you feel now?
I feel like a total loser now.
we should do an anti-vaxxer show sometime.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dude, that could be fun.
I would love to do, if you guys would have me back at some point, I would love to do just a whole episode, if you'd want, talking about sort of the highlights of Penn and Teller's bullshit, and sort of include that. And
talk about pseudoscience.
Pseudoscience.
Yeah.
And talk about, that and homeopathy and reflexology and all that kind of shit.
Because we've kind of revolved the show around creationism, so should bring in the other fringe elements.
And sort of new age medicine and woo-woo thinking, because that's like a pet, interest for me as a study. So I would love to talk more about that. But yeah, it's interesting stuff.
I'm pretty sure we could find all kinds of quotes from
and
Professor Dawkins about that.
Deepak Chopra.
And I hate to hog the mic, but I have to put this on record for the world. Fuck Jenny McCarthy.
Oh, yes, please.
Absolutely not. Well, she is an absolute moral cretin. Her whole campaign, which has been led in many ways by by a Maine pediatric doctor out in California, the thing that really bothers me about her is the fact that if we're going off of pure numbers alone, like utilitarian numbers, vaccines are a public good. And just for the record, I'll say this briefly. The problem that she has is she makes the argument that vaccinations cause more autism. That's not true. The reason why cases of autism have gone up in the last 20 to 25 years is because we're now diagnosing it as autism. 25 years before the DSM-4, which is the Bible of mental illness, it used to be called childhood schizophrenia. And so there was an autism spectrum disorder. Now there is. And so we're having more and more cases of it because now we're properly diagnosing it. That's science changing and making itself better, and Jenny McCarthy being a damn moron.
Right, and she's also breaking one of the cardinal rules of science is she's taking a correlation as gospel, basically. And you're right, the rise of autism it's something that's diagnosed more often because we know more about it.
Yep.
But any good scientist knows in a correlational kind of study, that does not. We know the saying, correlation does not equal causation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you always have to look for, there's always a third, maybe even fourth, maybe fifth, maybe sixth, maybe seventh, an infinite variable that could cause these two things to be in line with one another. They could be completely unrelated in the end. So people, don't listen to Jenny McCarthy.
Absolutely not.
She's dangerous.
She is dangerous. She's incredibly dangerous because you have seen more cases in the United States of whooping cough and measles and mumps and rubella and smallpox and all these things are starting to go up, and they're going up because of this anti-vax crusade. And this is a particular political problem on the left too, because the political left, which I consider myself a member of the political left, that's a huge problem. Is their denial of the benefits of vaccinations and their denial of the benefits of GMOs as well. And they have sort of
I
this
was
sort
about
of
to throw that in there.
and it's this junk science that they tend to use. So it's not immune to people who are Democrats or progressives. This happens on both sides.
There's like a new age kind of appeal to some of these things.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's not something that you see usually on the religious. It's a totally different kind of bullshit.
Yeah, the thing about the religious fundamentalism on the right tends to be very authoritarian, and it's proto-fascist, really, is what it is.
Right.
Whereas it reminds me very much of the Royalist movement in the Spanish Civil War in the 30s that was very much tied to the Catholic Church and the monarchy, that wanted to bring the monarchy back. And on the left, it reminds me very much of sort of a hippie, new agey, woo-woo kind
Anti-establishment
of
kind of thing.
Yeah. I really do think the left fucked up in the 60s when they decided to take the advice of Abby Hoffman and Timothy Leary. That's where they really got off the wrong track.
Yeah.
And that's going way meta.
I was thinking, I got nothing to add to that.
So.
Sorry.
Yeah, but thanks, Seth, for bringing up Jenny McCarthy in this article. It gave us something to rant about for a second.
I just want her to be trashed more and more and more in the public so that people just know how dumb she is.
It's just frustrating for me.
Yeah. Now, Justin, you mentioned the ratings for the first night.
I did. Fox had, it was an LA Times article that talked about how the ratings on Fox were 5.8 million. Which is pretty good for a Sunday night, especially for the very first documentary that's ever aired on network television, which is pretty cool. It's the first major primetime documentary ever shown in network television that's not PBS. And so it was number 3 in the slot, so it was good, but it wasn't like, whoa, that's amazing good.
Right.
But you have to add in the other fact that there were 9 other networks that were of the Fox system that were showing the show, because I watched it on National Geographic, and then there was also on demand, which they're now counting. So we'll get a better estimate of how much there was viewing towards the end of the week.
And then you've got to hope that the media attention that this show is garnering is going to. Maybe we'll see more people come for the second episode.
Oh, my hope is that this show, I don't. Controversial is a wrong word to describe it, but my hope is that it really becomes sort of a button pusher. Like, I want this show to be sort of a button pusher.
Start the conversation nationally.
A conversation starter. Like, I want people to watch it. I mean, I want it to get the infuriated fundamentalists to watch it. Like, that's what I want to see.
I think it's pretty evident just in the first show that they're going to push buttons as it is. I mean, they're already putting the religious aspect into it. But not only that, when you were talking about how many stations it was on, think about how awesome it is that Fox cared so much about this, and I think it will have such an impact. The 2 vice presidents of programming, I can't remember what their names were, but they were so impressed with this, and they want to put it out there that seriously, it was on, was it 9 networks total?
It was on.
They really,
10,
they put it out there to make sure that it's a big deal. Now, I don't think any other show from now on will be on anything other than Nat Geo and just Fox, correct? It was just the very first show that started off.
And I do want to be clear that the 5.8 million is only the Fox viewership. It's not all the other networks. That number will be added in later in the week.
It'll be really interesting to see how it turns out after this, because I think
for sure.
I'm really curious. Today was a long day, and I'm not going to bore you guys with that. I wasn't at work today, but that's a long story. Anyway, so I didn't really get a chance to really monitor Facebook, but I had planned on kind of keeping an eye on it. But what I did notice is when I was there in the morning, that there was a lot of people. I mean, actually, did I just die?
No.
No. Oh, I bumped. That tends to happen. Anyway, I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, Facebook has this really cool what's trending. If you've noticed on the upper right hand side of the platform, and Neil deGrasse Tyson was like the #1 trending thing
Yeah.
on Facebook at that particular point in the morning. So
Nice.
I think that right there says quite a lot.
Yeah, it was, and it was not just Neil Tyson, but it was Neil Tyson, it was Carl Sagan, it was Cosmos. Like, it was in my trending topics pretty much all day. And I think the thing, too, is that I personally think for younger viewers, I think specifically on demand and Hulu and all that, that will give people a better estimate, because viewership on television, on network television, is not enough to give us a good picture of the whole scheme of things. And so I look forward to seeing what the final sort of numbers are.
One thing that I did notice this morning, and I don't know that this is just limited to my experience or whatnot, but when I got into the office, I was talking to my intern and my coworker, and I walk in behind him and I go, "Guys, did you watch Cosmos last night?" and the first guy, my intern, immediately was like, "Yes." He was all excited about it. And then my buddy, who is a young Earth creationist, just said no and turned around.
No.
Turned around. Like, he just turned his face away from me and went back to his computer. And I'm thinking to myself, I hope this isn't, I mean, are you avoiding it? That was what I was a little bit afraid of. That's what was said to me visually.
I wonder if he's afraid to watch it.
It does kind of make you wonder. I mean, are people afraid to watch it? Because, you know, in our viewpoints, if we're trying to watch some, I mean, you've watched more creation science stuff than I have, Keith. But I can only imagine that if I started to watch any of that, it would just piss me off, because you would listen to it and think, my God, this is ignorant.
Right.
But then, can it appear ignorant to that of a religious person? Can it really appear ignorant?
Are you talking about valid science, or are you talking
valid science? Can valid science appear ignorant to a...
I think once it can on the surface, sure, because when someone mentions to you that, say, let's think of, like, the principle of abiogenesis, you know, organic matter arising from inorganic matter, basically. That sounds really silly on the surface to probably, especially a religious person. But when you really dive in and you start learning, but basically what I'm saying is, I think, maybe they could at first look at it as absurd, but the problem is there's so much more to look into, and with these religious claims, it's pretty much what you get on the surface is what it is. There's really
there's very little. I wanted to say, on as a side note, you were talking about friends. I had a fraternity meeting yesterday, and I talked to some friends, and I made a very big plug. I was like, you guys should all watch Cosmos. And it's interesting enough that Cosmos had to compete with The Walking Dead. It also had to compete with the season finale of that True Detective show on HBO, which broke their on-demand system because so many people were watching True Detective. So it's like, the
science, hell is that?
Science had to compete with Matthew McConaughey and zombies. So it's one of those things where to think. But anyway, we were talking about, and I had a friend of mine who said that I said, "What do you think about Cosmos?" And I texted him, and he was like, "It can only be described in 2 words: fucking majestic."
Nice.
And that was what he said, and he really liked the show.
Wait, can you show me the name? Rather than say it?
Yeah.
Just because I'm curious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Of course, I can also see.
I had a couple other.
Really?
No, he was the this.
I can just see he's open-minded. But anyway,
that particular person watched The Walking Dead.
Zombies, that's all right.
I take science over.
I'm somewhat disappointed, but at the same time, people are invested in The Walking Dead.
Oh yeah, and they're invested in True Detective, and that's like one of the best TV dramas in years, and people are really liking it, and I get that.
But hey, a fucking science documentary. Docu-series.
Yeah.
A science docu-series was 3rd overall in the rankings on Sunday night. So
now that you've learned about the undead, let's talk about the living.
Well, yeah, but hell, that's half the fun about science. I mean, going back and digging through the rocks and, trying to prove about the stuff that existed. And that's actually what was even more fantastic about the January 1st through December
The cosmic calendar.
31, the actual cosmic calendar, and putting that into perspective and showing based on when it was born to where we exist, and the fact that we exist on such a minuscule scale of the last seconds of the last minute of the last day.
Well, even the entire existence of Earth is less than, it's a fraction of a blink of an eye in the timeline of the history of the cosmos. It's just
the sun itself.
Yeah, it's so, oh God, that's just the perspective that those are the things that just make me, like, I was inspired to get I was outside with my telescope.
I know, I saw your face.
After
That's what he calls it, his telescope.
Yeah. But I haven't been able to use my telescope much this winter because of the terrible weather that we've experienced.
Yeah.
So it was wonderful, and I was just so bummed that there was so much haze on the south, because I haven't actually gotten an opportunity to view Mars since I've purchased this telescope. And I will, though. I mean,
Your opportunity is coming.
It's gonna be out there for a while. Opposition's in early April, so you're gonna have to come over and see that, both of you.
Oh yeah, I would love to.
Yeah,
Actually,
Justin, you've got to come over and check out.
Here's the thing. I didn't grow up with a telescope as a kid, and I've never really looked at a telescope before. So I was talking the other night about when I saw your status, I was like, damn, I gotta get one.
Yeah.
So bad.
So you've never looked through a telescope?
Not really, no. I mean,
Dude, wait till you look at Saturn.
That's what I was gonna say.
Saturn, and not only that,
Bring an extra pair of pants, buddy.
Yeah, Saturn. Not because you'll piss them, because you'll rip them.
Or though you can, I can see the detail of the rings.
No.
I gotta adjust myself.
You'll shit yourself when you actually see
Really?
the moons of Jupiter.
now what happens if my science what happens if my science boner lasts longer than 4 hours?
Well, we have other ways of taking care of it.
It is actually really, really impressive, though, to be able to see these and realize that you're looking at the rings of Saturn. You can actually see, not only that, you can see the moons of Jupiter and the moons of Saturn. I mean, you can see all this stuff, and it's when you're looking through that glass and you realize that it's, sure, you've seen it on TV, you've seen it in pictures and whatnot, but when you're seeing it with your own damn eyes, it's it's an otherworldly feeling experience, man.
My girlfriend surprised me recently with a couple Carl Sagan books. I came home and they were there, and I was very excited. And one of them was called Comet, and it had all kinds of really awesome pictures. And then The Pale Blue Dot's another great book that's got some fantastic pictures in it too. And it's just like, oh, I want to know what that looks like firsthand, because the pictures are amazing, like nebulas colliding with one another, and the aurora borealis, and all these things. They're just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we going? What were you about to say?
I don't remember.
Justin's very excited.
One of my favorite things I do every Wednesday I have to put the trash out at night, and usually Wednesdays are very clear days, so I take the trash out, and then I look up at the stars, and I stargaze for a while I'm out there, and I love that. I also kind of moon gaze today. I was driving down, and I have a moon roof on my car, and I looked up, and boom, there was the moon right there, and this beautiful day sky, this afternoon sky, and there's the moon, and it's just like, oh, it's so awesome.
Oh, the moon is phenomenal through my telescope, by the way.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
I think it's even cooler when you can see the vague outline of the dark of the moon.
Yeah.
It's...
Right, when it's not a full moon, it's actually a little bit cooler because you can, I mean, I don't know if you've read much from Galileo, but like he talks about that in Sidereus Nuncius, the actual, like a crescent moon is, you can actually kind of see the depth of the craters in the mountains and things. It's just amazing, and that's what I'm so excited about with Mars, is because Mars detail can be revealed on a 6-inch telescope, and I've got a 10-inch aperture.
Ooh.
Oh my! Okay, we're gonna have to check out Mars.
Yeah. We're gonna.
Yeah, it sounds great. It sounds really wonderful. Because that's the thing. Is like I love how Neil Tyson talks about the idea of it. People think it makes them feel small. It makes me feel really big.
Yep.
That everything that I'm made of is out there, and that we are one, and not in that weird hippie way, but that we're literally we are the same thing, and that makes me so in awe and in wonder and in joy.
And that leads me to my very favorite Carl Sagan quote: "We are a way for the cosmos to know itself."
Yes.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Yeah.
We are a way for the cosmos to know itself.
Yeah. Billions and billions.
So okay, we've definitely blown a load
Yeah.
on the cosmos, and And Keith, you actually found something really cool to share with me. Was it yesterday?
Probably.
The startup of a new show.
Yeah, I think a lot of people know about the awesome Facebook page I Fucking Love Science.
Pretty good.
It is. And this Elsie Andrew, who is the owner of this page, is just, I think she's one of the most important people in the last few years, because she has drawn a circle around the coolest things that come out of science, and
explain that she fucking loves it.
yeah, but she has created a genuine buzz around science.
Yeah.
And
one thing we have to do, and I hate to interrupt you, I just want to say briefly that we have to make science sexy. And I think that's kind of what I Fucking Love Science does. It makes science kind of sexy and fun.
it does. Absolutely. But anyway, what's happening now is the Science Channel, which is about 70% science, 30% trash television. But that channel has some great shows, like Through the Wormhole with Morgan Freeman's one of my favorites.
Which I watched for the first time last
The
night with
Hawking
you.
stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they show the grand design, the little 3-part miniseries with Hawking. There's another Hawking series they have. There's the How the Universe Works. It was originally a Discovery Channel show, but it was narrated by Mike Rowe, and they play that on a loop sometimes. But yeah, the Science Channel does have some really good stuff and reputable scientists speaking on behalf of these shows. Lawrence Krauss is a big contributor.
Yeah.
Phil Plait.
Brian Green.
Michio Kaku.
Yeah, Michio Kaku.
Oh, I love Michio Kaku.
Me too.
Richard Dawkins has appeared on a couple of things.
Brian Cox.
Brian Cox. I
I'm
love
just
Brian
learning
Cox.
about this guy. He's finally showing up on my radar.
Brian
Yeah.
Cox.
And and in fact, the really cool thing about this guy is this interview I keep referring to with Neil, where he was in England, and he was talking with this other guy. It was a big media press day, and it was the day before Cosmos aired. It was Saturday that I watched it on YouTube, and they got to talking about the fact that Neil has so many millions of followers on Twitter. Like, he is the shit when it comes to science.
Oh, yeah.
But his close rival is Brian Cox,
Yeah.
who is just below him. And Neil said, what's impressive about this guy is the fact that he's in England, and he has less people to attract than I do in the States. So he was giving the guy props. So I think there's some mutual respect going on.
Well, Brian
there.
Cox is the real deal.
Oh, he is. One of my favorite things that he did recently was for the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who. He did a lecture that they filmed called The Science of Doctor Who, where he talked about time travel. He talked about light and how light bends. He talked about Faraday's experiments with electromagnetism and how much he loved Michael Faraday. And it was so wonderful, inspiring, and then there's little clips in between where he talks with the Doctor and the TARDIS. And as a Doctor Who fan and as a science person, that's about as good as it gets.
Heck yeah. I'm a Whovian as well. But okay, yeah, this show, there's actually going to be a show. I don't know if it's actually going to be titled I Fucking Love Science, but
Actually, according to this,
It might be F star
it
star
sounds
King.
like
yeah.
where was I swore it actually said the show would actually be, it would be I Fing Love Science, I think is what they were going to do. Which is actually a little annoying because that's a word that my
effing-
wife and I made up.
I effing love science.
It's a special word. Anyway,
Well,
so Craig Ferguson, who is
Yeah.
the host of Late Late, right?
well, yeah, he'll be the host of this show.
And I think a lot of people, if you read the comment, did you read the comments below the story?
No.
There were a lot of people who were talking about, hey, why isn't Ellie hosting the show? And it went on and on and on. It's
She's
the
a
peanut gallery.
She's a
but-
student still.
She doesn't want to. She's made it clear that she wants to be an advisor and a producer on the show. It's kind of like Andrew Yan with Cosmos. She doesn't really want to be on it, but she wants to have a very big hand in it.
Elsie's a colleague of mine. She's a biology student.
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty impressive, and I am very pumped. I think some people get a little thrown at first when they hear I fucking love science, and when you're sharing I fucking love science pictures all over Facebook in your professional work environment or something like that.
Yeah.
There's this stigma to it, but at the same time, it's like, fuck it, man, this is
It was-
awesome.
For me, it was like trying to talk to people about bullshit and talking about Penn and Teller's bullshit, and I would just flat out say it. I didn't care if they were offended. That's the title.
Yeah.
Get used to it. You know.
I was apprehensive. I'm the same. At first, I was apprehensive about sharing I fucking love science articles, but after a while, I was just like, who cares? These are great articles. Who cares what the
Yeah.
title of the page is?
If you're going to be that offended by the word, we don't need you. Like,
Right. And some of the best information, like some of the newest breaking information that I have obtained has come from I Fucking Love Science.
Oh.
Like it's
Do they also share the This Week in Science?
yeah, that was
Yeah,
the thing
they
I was
do.
going to talk about. I love that.
yeah, it's one of the best things.
It's my favorite
It
things
is
I
the
read.
best thing they do, I think.
Oh, it's my favorite thing I read in the week. sometimes.
We've actually been flirting with the idea of having our own little segment of This
Yeah.
Week in Science, and we still haven't done it yet.
Oh, it's so
yeah,
good.
I share This Week in Science as often as possible.
And I'm glad you do because it shows up on my dash and then I read it.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say, read a little bit of what Craig Ferguson had to say about this. Just a quick little. If you know anything about me, you know I love science, said Ferguson. Science has a naughty secret. It's that all things are connected, and this show is going to explore the randomness of science. Think of it as a late-night Google search that goes 100 pages in deep until things get weird, and then you just keep going. And there is no better partner for this kind of smart entertainment like Science Channel and Elise, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And it just goes deeper, gets weirder and deeper.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love how Cosmos is going to be like the elder statesman of these kinds of shows,
Right.
And then like I Fucking Love Science is going to be like the kid brother. And
Dude, bring it on, man.
Yeah.
Bring
I
the
love it.
shows on.
Yeah.
I mean,
Please, yeah.
There's already obviously like really cool documentaries that you can watch on the animal,
We've got
just
that.
Planet Earth and stuff like that, where you get to see the shit that's actually on the planet that's just mind blowing that you never see.
You've got that and Nova, and then I don't know how valid this is, but Penn Jillette on his podcast has talked repeatedly about how Penn and Teller as a corporation, they own the format and the copyright to bullshit, and so they're going to shop it out. They're going to see if they can bring bullshit back. So
would be
bullshit
great.
may come back, which would be awesome. Be awesome.
I have the first 2 seasons on the DVD set.
I have every season, but season 7,
Yeah.
and I have season 8 signed by both of them.
Oh, nice.
I love those
So yeah,
guys.
it's definitely things are going well in the
Things are looking well for
Pop-
science.
the popularization of science
Pop
has
culture
started.
science.
It's growing right now.
And I think you can take that even further. I mean, you mentioned bullshit with Penn and Teller,
Yeah.
but then there's also you've got Mythbusters who have been
Oh,
doing
yeah.
the
Oh,
show
yeah, they've
for
been doing it
10
for a while.
years.
Yeah.
And
Mythbusters
I mean,
is
really,
still going strong.
what's really cool about those guys is they got popular, and then they came out as I think one or both of them are
Well, Adam
atheists.
for sure. Adam for
Adam
sure.
is smoking
And
Tam,
it's
yeah.
just it's coming.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's out there, it's coming, and
it's great.
people, it's awesome.
I have to bring up this from the Morgan Freeman's Through the Wormhole.
Oh,
The math. There's a guy that was running a mathematical equation to where this equation basically comes out to everything kind of ends up in a uniform state. Like he took a whole bunch of metronomes and just willy-nilly kind of started them up, and eventually, and they were on this kind of platform with wheels, and eventually they all synced up. And he was kind of trying to explain how his equation works.
right.
And he took a timeline of recorded history since people have started census, all of the nations that had a census,
Right.
and since they started asking you to declare what religion you were. And this census is showing the same kind of pattern that his equation shows, to where as each religion kind of grows smaller and smaller, consistently throughout all of recorded history, the fastest growing, it's not just now that we've just started to notice it. It's always been the fastest growing unaffiliated. The nuns has always been the fastest growing. It is leaps and bounds outrunning religion.
Oh yeah.
And he basically has made a projection by 2050 that by 2050, being religious could be already starting the decline towards becoming a minority view.
Wait,
Yeah.
are you saying this has happened like throughout history, or what you're saying is since it all began, the actual
he's
it's
go-
just building slowly and now it's expanding?
Yeah, he's going from recorded history since the country started, a census
yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, the trend is rapidly going towards, in the grand scheme of things, rapidly going towards being non-religious, being a secular
2050?
world. Yeah, and
I might still be alive.
I might be alive.
I might still be alive too.
I'll be like 80 years old. Bring it.
I'll be 60.
Wait.
60.
You'd be, yeah.
2050? I was born.
You'd be more like 70.
Oh, I'd be 70. I'm sorry.
I'll be 60,
Yeah,
which,
that's-
if the way I treat my body, that may not happen.
Damn it! I gotta start eating better.
I do too. I get so fat and then I realize, oh shit, this is it.
But you know, for every wonderful thing, there's always something shitty coming from the other side. We have all of these wonderful science shows that are coming up, and all this hopefulness from all of the popularization of science that's taking place. But at the same time, we have several major films coming out that are touting religious themes. We've got Son of God, which has been panned by critics. I don't know if you follow Rotten Tomatoes, but it was 23%.
It got its ass whooped.
Yeah.
Roundly by 300. So.
Yeah. And apparently it's just another
Which proves that America's all pagan.
yeah, but right, but and then we have Heaven is for Real, another one that's based on some.
With Greg Kinnear.
Yeah, it's,
Shame on him.
Yeah, that's what
Shame on him.
Yeah, Greg Kinnear. What the hell?
Seriously.
And but this one is about the little kid that has a near-death experience and claims that he went to heaven and came back to tell about it.
If that isn't a case of confirmation bias, I don't know what it is, because his dad was a minister.
Uh-huh.
His dad showed him all this information. But when he was growing up as a kid, and then the people are like, I don't know. It's
And there's also an emerging evidence in neuroscience of certain parts of the brain that are activated in these out-of-body type experiences that...
Oh, yeah.
And you're obviously going to paint a picture in your brain, and it's a hallucinatory experience. You're going to paint a picture of things that you know, that you've been taught. Your brain's not just going to...
Did you guys?
I love the astronauts with the G-force machines and how they knock out and then they have near-death experience. Because it's like blood flow cut off from the brain sends your brain into a third trip.
Yeah.
And it's basically like all the neurotransmitters and all of these chemicals are firing all at once, and they're not being selective, which is what they usually do.
Yeah.
And you trip balls. And that's what happens, but people have sort of confirmation biases about religion, and so it sort of becomes this bigger thing.
Uh-huh.
Did you guys see on the Student Secular Alliance page, the president posted an article. It was a preview for a movie that was about to come up, like God is Not Dead or something like that.
Yes, I've heard of that one.
It was really fantastic. His quote or his headline for that was, "This has got to be the most profound, truthful way to show an atheist ever." And what's the Kevin Sorbo is the guy who plays the atheist philosopher.
Oh.
And as I'm watching through this,
wow.
I'm thinking to myself, "Oh my God, this is such bullshit." As I'm watching this preview, it's like a 2.5 minute preview, and they make him out to be a really angry person, and that he's superior to everyone.
Plus,
blah 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 blah.
Any philosophy professor. Oh, I saw this so forever ago. Okay, this is okay. Any philosophy professor who knows logic enough would not start a class with trying to prove a negative. Like, he would not. He starts out and he goes, "Class, I want you to write in 3 sentences why there is no God." No philosophy professor on the fucking planet who is reputable, who's good at his job, would ever do that. Ever.
You know why he doesn't try to prove a negative? Because you fucking can't.
Because it's impossible.
I was just thinking to
The
myself,
burden of proof is on the people making the claim, not on the people refuting it.
Right.
why didn't they have Daniel Dennett as
That's the most
the
annoying
as the
misconception.
philosopher?
Oh my God.
I was like, why couldn't we have Daniel Dennett do this?
And of
instead
course,
quote
I've seen
Kevin
that
Sorbo.
I've seen that trailer. It is one of the most sycophantic, lame-ass things I've ever seen. I saw this a few months back, so the link that he posted I didn't see, but I saw this months back. And I facepalmed the whole time. It's just like, a real philosophy professor wouldn't do that. A real student wouldn't be that much of a hard ass. And I guarantee you, a 50-something-year-old PhD professor would wipe the floor with these undergraduate
That
students.
is such a cliche too, to show the brave student challenge the professor.
Yes,
like you can find that in old fucking Jack
Exactly.
Chick tracks. I don't know if
You
you're
know what?
familiar with these, but
All I have to say is
challenging the biology professor in evolution.
shame on
Like,
Kevin Sorbo.
Yeah.
who cares about him anyway? He did Hercules. He's a B actor.
My favorite.
Shall we move on?
I love how there's an internet video of him where he had actor's notes where he was supposed to read a line and then he was supposed to act as if disappointed. But instead of acting disappointed, he yells disappointed.
Disappointed!
So he goes, disappointed! And it's amazing because it's like, it's supposed to be a stage note and he reads it as if it's actual dialogue.
Then.
It's really... Which almost really sort of debates his reading comprehension skills. You know,
Yeah.
You can't tell from dialogue from stage notes.
One quick question back to Heaven is for Real though.
Yeah.
Before we move on, have you guys heard of a little contraption called the God helmet?
No.
Yeah, I've heard about it.
Yeah, this thing was outlined in Morgan Freeman through the wormhole.
Okay.
Now the developer of this helmet, his name is Stanley Coren, and what it does is he believes that he has found the center of the brain, the part of the brain that is activated when someone feels that they're connected with God. They're having a spiritual type feeling.
Oh yeah.
And
Okay. I know
what he actually does is he there's electrodes and things inside of this helmet, and what he'll do is he'll try to invoke a feeling of the presence of the supernatural, and he's been able to do it, and in a controlled setting. So I mean, it's not conclusive yet, but there's some really good evidence coming out of this God helmet. Like on the show, this girl just truly felt that there were other people in the room with her when he activated this part of her brain.
Yeah, this is where I want to see something happen where somebody's at a concert and they get that feeling where they're with a massive group of people and they're all feeling the same thing, feeling that power of something that you're anticipating to hit you, and it does, kind of deal.
Yeah,
And there's
right.
good evidence to talk about the idea that people who have increased chances of problems with the occipital lobe and have increased chances of epilepsy, and the epilepsy sort of brings on heightened religious feelings. So it's obviously I don't know if it's obviously, but I would say that tentatively, I think it's safe to make a postulation that that people's religious feelings and are to a certain extent tied to brain chemistry.
Right, I would agree with you. But anyway, going on here, there's another movie that's coming out, and it's actually a movie that's directed by an atheist, Darren Aronofsky, who did The Wrestler, he did Black Swan, some really good.
He almost made Batman.
Yeah, but now he's coming out with Noah, starring Russell Crowe as Noah. I believe Anthony Hopkins is in this movie as well.
Oh yeah,
But the thing is I have to question Darren Aronofsky's motives. Like, what would have inspired him to make a movie about Noah?
Question.
You do? Okay, good.
Darren Aronofsky wrote a graphic novel called Noah that is inspired by the Genesis account, but it differs strongly from it.
Okay.
And so his tale is not so much a tale of saving the species and saving it, but and the Ken Ham crap. But what it really is it's more of a story about ecological destruction.
Okay.
And so I think what with this film, and I can't say because I haven't seen it, it's not out yet, but one of the things I've been reading about it is that it is supposed to be sort of a tale to talk about, in a roundabout way, to talk about global warming and climate change. Like it's something of those at that sort of, it's a limited nature, but yeah, he's not pulling it page for page from Genesis. He's basing this off a graphic novel that he wrote.
Which I think was Ken Ham's whole argument and anger about it anyway.
Yeah, and this has, and because of this Christian backlash, Paramount has actually put out a statement that it's kind of a disclaimer before the movie that we've taken artistic license, and they explain that they know that this is a cornerstone of faith for millions of people, and so they're basically just apologizing before the movie is even released,
which is never ever good.
Yeah,
it never works out well.
Let's put artistic license on a story that's been made up in the first place.
Right. And that's bad enough, but then I guess we at least have to give the United States a little bit of credit, because we have in the Arabic world 3 countries who have actually banned the movie. It won't be released.
Oh yeah, I saw that. That was pretty impressive too.
Part of it is they don't. Part of it is their belief is that you are not supposed to portray holy figures in an artistic manner. at all. Like, because obviously you've seen what happened with that Dutch cartoonist when he did
Muhammad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it actually probably wasn't even the guy. It was, I think, from what I understand, it's possible that was actually drawn by somebody else and it was put on them.
Well,
Right.
it's not only that, but you had the Dutch filmmaker Theo van Gogh, and Theo van Gogh had written and made a film called Submission, which talked about spousal abuse in Middle Eastern culture and how it's tied to Islam.
Right.
And they killed him for it. So it's one of those things where that is a huge problem in our culture and in that culture too. And this happened in the Netherlands. It didn't happen in an Arabic country. They killed him in his home country.
Right. And you see what I think through this little Christian backlash that has occurred kind of does is it actually is kind of further evidence that the religious feel that their worldviews are immune to criticism. They feel that it's completely we should not be able to talk about it.
Right.
We should not be able to have anything to say about their worldview. I think we're both of the opinion that religious views and worldviews are open to criticism as much as any political view is, and we need to get to that point where we can have that discussion without this side freaking out every time we have something to say or a question to ask to make them think about.
Absolutely.
It needs to stop being a taboo.
Right.
And they also have to stop pulling the persecution card all the time too. Because just because I differ with you doesn't mean I'm persecuting you. If I was persecuting you, I'd be either beating you up or killing you. That's what persecution
The degree of
Did you just
hyperbole
make up
there.
something new there, the persecution card.
I don't know if I did, but but they pull that all the time, you know.
Yeah.
And it's infuriating. It's like just because someone questions, like, so if you question Darwin, are you questioning evolution? Are you somehow is science being persecuted by you?
Yeah, exactly. And if you want to learn a little bit about Christians being persecuted, look up Diocletian's reign in Rome. Okay, look up something like that. I believe it was Diocletian, he was the first one to really, on a pretty grand scale, persecute Christians. That's persecution. People disagreeing with your worldview and not letting you run the country and have privilege anymore is not persecution. That's you crying like a little bitch because you're losing your grip on society.
Because your ideas don't hold up to criticism.
Right.
And I think another thing too is they don't want children to criticize it, because children are smart and children can sort of see through bullshit from a mile away.
And they do, and they're trained to stop doing it.
And they're training them to stop doing it. Yeah, that's a problem.
Oh man, imagine if Neil and Bill and I get their way and children are allowed to continue.
And this conversation we're having now was my real motivation for bringing up Noah. It's not actually the film itself, but I think it's just another thing that highlights this.
The concept of being questioned, and it's like, well, because we don't think this is
Right.
exactly the way it is, we need to make sure that people understand that this is an artistic license.
Yeah.
Right, and it's not so much people asking questions about their worldview, it's even just portraying a story from their religious text and taking a slight bit of artistic license with it can cause this much of a stir. That just shows the privilege that they feel that they have, that, oh, we can't, this can't happen to us, we will not stand for this. But everything else
That's
is...
because they're not making any money off of it. When Kevin Smith released Dogma, and it was originally supposed to be released by Touchstone Pictures, it was connected to Disney, and all the Christian crusaders came out of the woodwork to try to get him to have this film be banned or have this film not shown. And then, so because of those problems and pressures, the film moved over to Dimension, which is was owned by the Weinstein brothers, so it had no connection with Disney whatsoever.
I really enjoy
And the Christians were like, "Yay, we won!" It's like, no, you didn't. The film is still being released today. Yeah, but Disney didn't do it. And I think it's the same thing. It's like if Noah had been produced, but the same people who produced Son of God, they wouldn't complain. They're not making any money off of it. They're not winning any new audience with it. Mm-hmm. So I even take it to an even meta level where they don't give a shit about their own beliefs. I think a lot of it, to a certain extent, is the fact they're not going to make money off it, and it's not going to get any new people interested in religion. Because this story is way, way, way more like mythological and apocryphal than it is like historical and biblical.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I agree with where you're going there, Keith.
Yeah. Well, Son of God, like, I'm a little bit encouraged by the lack of, what's the word I'm looking for here?
lack of passion for it, or lack of
there you go.
interest,
Yeah, lack of interest, and you're not even hearing a whole lot of Christians come out and just sing the praises of the movie Son of God. So I'm kind of hoping that these other movies will kind of have their little quiet entrance and exit as well. Now I'm afraid Heaven is for Real is going to create some.
Oh, it'll be huge. I work at a bookstore, and I can tell you firsthand, when that book came out 2 or 3 years ago, people went apeshit.
Yeah.
People loved it.
My mom's read it. My sister's read it. My wife has read it.
My all-time favorite part of it, though, was having these little old ladies, because that book broke at the same time that 50 Shades of Grey did. And it was really fun to watch people buy a copy of 50 Shades of Grey with a copy of Heaven is for Real.
yeah.
That was pretty fucking awesome. That was pretty funny. And I was just like, do they not know what that one's about, or do they not know what that one's about? Like, you know. And my other favorite was, there was another book that came out a few years ago called The Boy Who Came Back from Heaven, and I always thought it was really funny because his last name was Malarkey.
I think
That's good.
I wonder if next to 50 Shades of Grey there should have been a book released at the same time that just said, "Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God."
Oh yeah, it was funny, but no. But Heaven is for Real was huge. It was absolutely huge. We sold copy after copy after copy. Church groups would come in and buy 10 or 15 copies at a time. I mean, it was huge.
Yeah.
So I expect the film to do, if not like crazy blockbuster good, I expect it to make decent money. It probably will.
Yeah. My problem is not how much money it's going to make. I just don't want to see another irrational, a resurgence of irrational thought, because we've got enough of it going on already with the anti-evolution movement and the anti-climate change anthropogen.
Right.
My favorite is just seeing the thing that interests me is that you see all these adults reading this book and taking it as palpable. It's like, it's a kid. Kids make shit up.
Yeah.
Like, kids make shit up all the time to explain things that they don't know, and it's like, you're gonna take this as their word? Like,
right.
You wouldn't do that with your own kids. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, and also at the same time, even if the kid really did see something and believes that he saw something, we don't know what happened in the kid's brain.
Yeah.
We can't speculate that he definitely went to heaven. Oh, the kid said he went to heaven. He went to heaven. That's how it happened.
Yeah, I mean, and it's such confirmation bias because his father was a pastor, and so it's this whole thing where it's like, you know, or it's like the Lee Strobel thing where he's a journalist, air quotes.
See,
that's
that's
that whole kind of thing.
We have to have more interest in corroborating these things. We have to have more interest in investigating further. I mean, face value is, I guess that's a thing that the religious like to.
Oh, well, that's all you need. I mean,
Because it's
when you
easy.
think about it, it's just like, oh, well, he saw it. He
It's
experienced
easy.
it.
It's
you don't
easy.
know what I experienced, and you can't prove that I didn't.
It's
I mean, that's
easy.
what it comes down to, right?
Yeah, and it's
Totally.
totally. It's easy. It makes you feel good. It's like a feel good kind of story. It's an uplifting kind of story for people, and
Especially when you can find other people who say that they had the same experience.
Oh, of
That's
course.
just-
How do we convey, though, that feeling good and feeling comfort is not a good excuse to, I don't know how to say it.
feeling good does not mean that it's true. Just because something feels good doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah, and it's not a good excuse not to take the proper steps in finding out if something is true. I mean, it's not
I really loved the 2002 remix of Blizzard of Oz by Ozzy Osbourne. And I researched it further and found out that all of the rhythm sections, backing tracks were recorded, and they took the original backing tracks off. And it didn't sound the same. And I go back and I find the original album with the original backing tracks, and it's the right thing, and it sounds the way it is. It sounds better. You can find better things when you research.
Yeah.
Even if it's science or if it's Bark the Moon, you're gonna find better stuff. You're gonna find, or Crazy Train. It's the cowbell sounds real on the original tracks. It just sounds better. So it's that same kind of thing.
Yes, we totally just made it to Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And also that excuse of it, it's comfort. It makes me feel good. That's great, but you've never even attempted to step outside of that little bubble. You don't know how you would feel if you would try to actually investigate something.
Exactly.
I've disproven this, and haha.
Yeah. Like, I don't know, the world to me as a non-believer is just so much more fascinating. And and that's what I try to get across, and like it's really hard to explain to someone who has never ever even considered questioning what they think they know. It's very difficult to explain the way that I feel now, coming from a perspective that I used to hold, that they hold at this time. If you see what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm trying to find a good way to explain this to.
That if they could feel what you feel now, I mean, I agree with you, and I didn't really grow up religious, but I can say that like the idea of questioning these things in society that just were sort of there, and they're true, and they're the way they are. I don't really agree, but they're there. And saying no, we actually can challenge them, and I don't know who said it. I think maybe Richard Dawkins, but it's something along the lines of like, the real world is far more interesting than anything anybody can make up, and that's it's just so much better.
So is.
It's such a better tale, and it's like, it's really hard to get people convinced of that because they want to have that little extra thing, this special extra thing that exists independently of everything else, and it's like that doesn't exist. Just accept that what it is. And we can debate the quandaries of why it is, but it is what it is, and just sort of accept that and learn about it, because that's way more cool than trying to sort of project this outside thing that you don't have any evidence for.
Okay, should I be determined to try to make sure that we keep this show a little shorter?
Sure. I see you've got the next story queued up there.
I'm okay with that.
We are an hour and 25 minutes into the show.
Okay.
And we have a few things that we wanted to get out there before we left this show. And here lately we've been getting close to an hour and 50 minutes on show length times.
Yeah, let's move on.
So let's
good call, Mike.
That's
like,
good. Yeah.
Guys, shut up! God.
I'm sorry, Jess and I have just been playing off of each other here.
Yeah, it's
And everybody else who's listening to this show is like, you asshole, why did you stop them?
It's necessary.
Because we have to. We can't do this all day long.
Yeah, I have shit to do too, still, I guess.
And
I got a midterm I got to study for.
and one of our favorite people is back in the news again.
Yay.
Yay.
Perpetual ugly soccer mom, Michelle Bachmann.
Miss Michelle Bachmann. She makes the news. And what, you found this, right, Keith? This was
Yeah,
hilarious.
it was just amusing to me. I mean,
I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, but it is funny that what she's okay. This is during the recent 2014 CPAC convention conference. She, the representative from Minnesota, is quoted as, "You see, our movement at its core is an intellectual movement," referring to the Tea Party. She said from the CPAC podium, "We are based on the greatest ideas ever conceived in the mind of man." Should I be reading this as a woman?
No, just
And I would put those magnificent ideas up against any other ideas for freedom in the world.
that's the most unattractive female voice I've ever heard.
I think the captures are stupid really well, though.
She continued by saying, because the Constitution limited government and free enterprise and strong families, these are the principles that have passed the test of time. She went on to say, nothing in our Constitution says the government is supposed to be a charity. Government is not the family. It is not the fucking church. She did say fucking, I heard it. And certainly it should never be our doctor's office. I have to say she did get that one part there in the middle right.
And it's not the church.
She even acknowledged that, but that's not what she meant.
It's just
No, she's a
she totally
theocrat.
didn't mean that. She will totally, if she were actually to be elected president, this would be a scary place.
I would say this as a former libertarian, I would say to a certain extent she's right. And what I mean by that is that the true libertarian movement, like based on the political philosophy of classical liberalism, is intellectual. It comes from the traditions of John Locke. It comes from the traditions of Thomas Paine. It comes from the traditions of Montague. It does. And so there are things like that. But the Tea Party specifically, no.
As it is now.
The Tea Party now, it's just a joke, and I think every time it's like to me when it started, I was immediately just thinking, I don't think these guys understand what the Tea Party was all about in the first place.
No.
No, I think it was sort of a thing where people got all in a hussy, and then it happened, and then people are like, okay, now what do we actually believe now? And if you're talking about classical liberalism, which is actual true conservatism, there is some intellectual weight there. But if you're talking about the Tea Party as a specific political operation in this country, no, it's not an intellectual movement. It is, quite frankly, it is an elitist one. For as much as you have all the working people out there trying to do what they're doing, it is a movement that is funded by big money donors, and it's funded by these sort of astroturf groups like the Kochs, and it's not an intellectual movement. It is a political one.
Right. There's a good in the comments section here. Someone quoted Isaac Asimov in response to this article. I thought it was pretty nice. There's a cult of ignorance in the United States, and there always has been. Always has been. The strain of anti-intellectualism has been a constant thread winding its way through our political and cultural life, nurtured by the false notion that democracy means that my ignorance is just as good as your knowledge. I like that quote.
Yeah, that's very nice. I love Isaac Asimov. He was a genius. He was truly a genius. He was a polymath. He knew everything.
Oh yeah.
But I think Asimov is right. I think that and it goes back to the discussion we had earlier about, certain ideas having a certain weight in the culture more than others and things like that. And it's like, I don't know. My thing is, it's that I think that things that are based on evidence and reason and empiricism, those are the things that should gain foothold in our country. And generally they do. It's just in the realm of religion, where people, where people don't. Mm-hmm. We don't have good enough skepticism in this country. The libertarians, for all the talk they have of the skepticism of government, they have no skepticism when it comes to anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly seems like a lot of conspiracy stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
A ton of it.
Not very many of them are really common sense. Some of them are, but most of them are bug nutty.
But I mean, of course, you can always say, you're going to have that in the left, you're going to have that in the right.
Oh, and I would almost make the point that it's worse than the left because the left don't have an excuse. And the political left in this country used to be formed by progressives who may have been Christian, like Woodrow Wilson was a Christian, but very much believed in making the world a better place and never let his religion get in the way of how he wanted to make the country better for everyone. And the same is with, I think you could almost make the same argument with Barack Obama, is the same way. Having said that, there's a lot of the new agey woo-woo hippie shit that sort of goes on the left where you don't really know what it is and it's just as pervasive and it's just as problematic. So you're right on the money. It's on both sides. I just think it's a lot easier to sort of criticize the right because the right are they're so adamant and sort of vocal about what they think about things, whereas the left tend to sort of dance around a little bit about it.
Well, did we cover that enough?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so now the real question is which right-wing watch roulette do we go with?
Oh, yes. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to get one on an episode I'm on.
We have two. We had one that we were going to play a few weeks ago, and then Keith, you found a good one today too. So I think I'm gonna let you pick.
Well, I'd go with this one, the one you have pulled up right now.
Okay, this is the one that we had ready to go a couple weeks ago, and we were a bunch of fucking...
We went way too long.
We talked a lot. I don't even remember which... Wait, but was this actually
it was
the
when
first
he
time
was
you were
here.
here?
Yeah.
This is why you won it, because you missed it the first time you were here.
See, it all comes full circle, kids. All comes full circle. I remember everything.
Okay, so Right Wing Watch Roulette has come back. I don't know. Did we do it the last show?
You guys
We did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, in this particular case... I don't know. Maybe I'm not even going to intro it. I'm just going to play it.
No, just play it.
It needs no
Yeah,
intro.
I think everybody will probably recognize the voice as soon as they hear it anyway.
And if they don't, good
So,
for them.
let's do this thing. I'm cueing it and I'm playing it. Ow, sorry.
Tin Man over there.
I say something very cryptic to you that I have thought about for the last 24 hours. Actually, about the last 3 weeks. I think there are some things that are coming, specifically with the Blaze, that when we started putting this thing together, we thought, there's no way this works. There's absolutely no way this works. But we just did what we were told to do, yes, by our Zionist masters, by God. And we came here, literally... someday we'll tell the whole story and we'll have nice laughs of how crazy the things are that we have done that make no sense until the end. Yeah. This last summer, I got the extreme message. Stand down, buddy. Stand down. You don't even know where I'm taking you. Sit down. Shut up. Be patient. I told you to get in the car. We're going someplace, and you keep saying, "But what are we going over here for? Why are we going?" Shut up. Sit down. Zip your mouth. Know that I am God. Okay. When we have the chance, if this stuff all falls into place that the Blaze is going through right now, I'm telling you, miracles. Absolute miracles.
Oh, goodness. Oh, Glenn.
Know that I am
For
God.
for a second there, he was making sense. He was saying the things that we have done and said were absolutely crazy and didn't make sense. And then he had to add that part until the end. I was with him for just a second there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because everything he says is crazy and doesn't make sense. So, well, it makes sense in his world, I suppose.
Well, it's like he I think he did an article a while back where he went on Fox News and he talked about the fact that he's like, I feel really personally responsible for dividing the country, and then proceeds to divide the country more.
Right.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, Glenn.
Know that I am God.
So
It's
he's basically just put himself on a plane with the
with
authors of the Bible, or apparently,
Moses.
yeah, he's been bestowed with the privilege of actually speaking with Yahweh directly.
I want somebody to ask him the same question. What does his voice sound like?
Yeah. Remember
We can ask that to Michelle Bachmann too.
what was the one that it was a right wing watch the other day? It was a couple weeks ago we did about the guys who said they prayed for God to show his face in the rotunda or whatever like that.
Oh yeah, that was a pretty good one too. I enjoyed that one.
I love the one last week. The one last week was the keyboard guy, right? It was like,
They're gonna put a witch. That's one of my favorite of all time.
oh,
think-
that one takes the cake along with
Yeah.
the Know That I Am God Glenn Beck.
Yeah.
Like crazy. Like,
I think what what I really enjoyed most about that one clip though was right after he said it, you hear the wha-bong.
Yeah, and all this funky bass comes chiming in.
Just oh my god, I can't even speak correctly. Oh man,
Oh,
I'm
it's
just
so
watching
funny,
this-
but it's not.
I'm watching the and then people are eating this up. They're
Oh, yeah.
like, "Oh my god, God is speaking through you."
They are dead serious about this stuff.
Oh well, they have to. I mean, they're paying $9.99 a month. They kind of want to get their money's worth.
Oh man.
Wow. Well,
Are we at the end?
I think we're at the
we're at the
wrap-up
end.
point.
Maybe we should just go ahead and wrap it up. There was something I wanted to mention, a Jacqueline Glenn video, but maybe I'll just say go check out Jacqueline Glenn on YouTube.
Oh, she's fantastic.
She's always got some good stuff. She did a really good thing where she was showing conspiracy things that happened. For instance, the Y2K, when it was going on. She found some video clips of some people who were trying to sell you a VHS tape to show you how to be prepared so that you could enter heaven the right way or something.
Oh,
And
I
it was
forgot about that.
It was
Yeah.
sold for like $9.99 or whatever.
There was
and-
also there was a website you could go to as well that would program your voicemail that says, "Hi, I'm not home right now. I've been taken up in the rapture."
I think there was something else too. It was owners of pets, don't worry. There's already an atheist group of people who will stay behind and take care of your pets for you when you go to heaven. There was a bunch of whole good stuff. But anyway, maybe I'll throw a link in that in the show notes so people can go check it out because I thought the video was freaking hilarious. I wish I thought about it beforehand. But
Yeah.
anyway, as always, you can get us beinghumanist.podcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, especially anybody who would love to tell us their favorite parts of the cosmos or something. Because I mean, it was Keith and I. Seriously, I met up over at Keith's house with my wife, and we're sitting over there eating caramelized popcorn and drinking our sodas, and just like it was like freaking movie night. It was freaking fantastic. And then of course we kind of finished the evening with a slight turn into the wormhole, and then a really deep intellectual conversation before I was like, okay, if we don't leave now, we'll never leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Get us there. Get us on Twitter at beinghumanistpc, YouTube. YouTube.com/beinghumanistpodcast. what am I missing? YouTube, Facebook.com/beinghumanist.podcast. I think that's pretty much everything.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to end here on a little clip, which was totally inspired by what we witnessed last night. But before we go, I want to make sure that I thank Keith for being a wonderful co-host. And
Yes, thank you. Yeah, you as well, sir.
And our special guest for the second time,
Yes,
our little buddy.
Justin.
Thank you so much. And in the words of Carl Sagan, if you wish to make an apple pie, you have to invent the universe.
Ooh, that's a little precursor
yeah,
into what we're going into.
Come with me.
So, as we always say, keep thinking, question everything.
Keep thinking.
Don't take our word for it. We're definitely not, like,
We're not theoretical physicists.
yeah,
No,
we're not.
We are lay people.
Yeah. So, yeah. Enjoy the rest of your week. Make sure you check out The Cosmos every chance you get, because it is on Hulu Plus now, and you can watch it all the time.
Fridays at 9 on Fox, and then Mondays at 10 on National Geographic Channel. If you watch the 10 p.m. Monday show, they're going to have extra stuff on it.
Yeah, I was going to say that's one thing that I haven't seen yet, and I'm really pissed because I don't have National Geo
Yeah.
channel. So, anyway,
I'm taping them.
that being said,
We can watch them later.
we'll talk to you guys next week. Enjoy.
Our own planet is only a tiny part of the vast cosmic tapestry, a starry fabric of worlds yet untold. Those worlds in space are as countless as all the grains of sand on all the beaches of the Earth. Each of those worlds is as real as ours. In every one of them, there's a succession of incidents, events, occurrences, which influence its future. Countless worlds, numberless moments, an immensity of space and time. And our small planet, at this moment, here we face a critical branch point in history. What we do with our world right now will propagate down through the centuries and powerfully affect the destiny of our descendants. It is well within our power to destroy our civilization and perhaps our species as well. If we capitulate to superstition or greed or stupidity, we can plunge our world into a darkness deeper than the time between the collapse of classical civilization and the Italian Renaissance. But we are also capable of using our compassion and our intelligence, our technology and our wealth to make an abundant and meaningful life for every inhabitant of this planet, to enhance enormously our understanding of the universe and to carry us to the stars.